Their Excellencies, the Right Honourable Dame Patsy Reddy, Governor-General of New Zealand, and Sir David Gascoigne.
Tēnei te reo karanga o te kawana tēnara, kia koutou mai nei, hara mai rā, hare mai, hare mai, hara mai rā I runga I te kaupapa, whakahira mā koutou e, hare mai, nau mai rā, tauti mai.
Kei ngā mana, kei ngā reo. Rauranga tira mā koutou ko tatu mai, rungi te reo karanga, a te kāwana tianara, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Kia whai kororia ki a koe e ihoa o ngā manu. Tū auriuri, pā iho, ki tonu te rangi me te whenua I tau kororia nui, matua, tama, wai ua tapu me ngānera pono me te māngai hei tautoko mai, ai nei, haka nei, ā.
Thank you everyone, please take a seat. I ngā mana, I ngā reo, I ngā iwi o ngā hoe whā, tēnei aku mihi mahana ki a koutou. Nau mai haere mai rā ki te whare kawana, kia ora tātou katoa. I specifically acknowledge Rhys Jones, Chief Executive Officer of Fire and Emergency New Zealand, Kerry Gregory, Deputy Chief Executive Service Delivery of Fire and Emergency New Zealand, our kuia Rānui Narimu, our kaumātua Joe Harawera. Tēnā koutou. And I offer a very special welcome to today's honour recipients. It's a real pleasure to host this ceremony today to bring together 12 honour recipients, along with their family and friends, to recognise the contributions they've made to our country. As Governor-General, I have the authority and the privilege on behalf of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, the Queen of New Zealand, to hold an investiture for her and to confer royal honours, our nation's highest honours, on individuals who've made an exceptional contribution to their communities and our nation. Hosting an investiture ceremony is one of the most important duties I perform as Governor-General because it enables me to recognise and thank them on behalf of all New Zealanders for helping to make Aotearoa New Zealand a better place to live. Some recipients have a national public profile and others will be well known in their particular communities. But what they have in common is the positive impact they've had on the economic, environmental, social or cultural well-being of our nation. Catriona McLeod will now read a citation for each recipient and invite them to come forward to receive their insignia. And as they come forward, I invite you to join me in thanking and congratulating them for their service to our country. Thank you.
Your Excellency, to receive the insignia of an Officer of the New Zealand Order of Merit, Mr. David Schwartz of Wellington for services to the Jewish and interfaith communities. David Schwartz was President of the New Zealand Jewish Council and is Chair of the Wellington Jewish Council. He's been active in the fight against anti-Semitism. He helped institute annual United Nations International Holocaust Remembrance Day ceremonies around the country and continues to facilitate this event in Wellington. He volunteers with the Holocaust Centre as a writer and presenter and assisted with the publication of Anne Frank's diary in Te Reo Māori. He's been editor and on the editorial board of the former New Zealand Jewish Chronicle and a presenter of the Jewish programs on community radio. He was part of the group that founded the Wellington Interfaith Council and established the National Interfaith Forums. Mr. Schwartz continues to work as a Jewish representative in the interfaith movement. Mr. David Schwartz, please come forward. Your Excellency, to receive the insignia of a member of the New Zealand Order of Merit, Mr. David Benton of Tauranga, for services to addiction support and treatment. David Benton is Chief Executive Officer for the Hanma BOP Charitable Trust, otherwise known as the Hanma Clinic Tauranga, which provides treatment for those with drug and alcohol addictions. He was a member of the National Committee for Addiction Treatment and the National Opioid Training Advisory Board. He chaired the National Network of Opioid Treatment Providers. He managed the Lakes Methadone Service in Rotorua and was Program Director for the Salvation Army Bridge Program on Rotorua Island, Auckland. He's developed alcohol and drug training programs and services throughout New Zealand. Mr. Benton collaborates with Te Tuenga Whānau to create services for homeless people with drug and alcohol-related issues. Mr. David Benton, please come forward. Mr. Des Mainahan of Cromwell for services to Fire and Emergency New Zealand. Des Mainahan was instrumental in the formation of the Southern Plantations Rural Fire Authority, SPRFA. He chaired the SPRFA board. He led discussions to convince the Department of Conservation and local government to combine with SPRFA across Southland and parts of Otago, ultimately forming the Southern Rural Fire Authority, SRFA. He chaired the SRFA board leading up to the formation of Fire and Emergency New Zealand. He chairs the enlarged Rural Fire Authorities Chairpersons Forum. He was chairperson of the Cromwell Golf Club, president of Otago Southland Axemen's Association, and a board member of Rugby Southland. Mr. Mainahan is a life member of the Mataura Rugby Club. Mr. Des Mainahan, please come forward. Mr. Christopher Te'o of Porirua for services to health, cycling, and the Pacific community. Christopher Te'o founded USO Bike Ride, a cycling collective that aims to improve the health and well-being of communities, particularly Pacific peoples, through cycling. He supported the establishment of 3 NZTA Bikes in Schools programs in Porirua schools. He's raised more than $140,000 to build cycle paths and buy new bicycles and helmets for these programs. He is an NZTA pedal-ready cycle skills instructor. He was part of the team that led the USO Bike Ride Bluff to Cape New Zealand cycle ride in partnership with the Cancer Society of New Zealand. Mr. Te'o is a founding trustee for Pacific Men's Health Aotearoa. Mr. Christopher Te'o, please come forward. Mr. Robert Webb of Whangarei for services to wildlife conservation. Robert Webb established the Whangarei Native Bird Recovery Centre in 1992. The centre rehabilitates approximately 1,300 birds annually. Mr. Webb and his wife continue to run the centre on a voluntary basis. He has been a key incubator and hatcher for Operation Nest Egg, contributing to kiwi recovery in Northland. He's undertaken advocacy work with Sparky, the one-legged kiwi, visiting schools and promoting wildlife care. He's educated thousands of Northland children, and around 6,000 school children visit the centre each year. Mr. Webb has provided advice to the Department of Conservation and the public on how to care for injured wildlife before they arrive at the centre. Mr. Robert Webb, please come forward. Your Excellency, to receive the Queen's Service Medal, Mr. Alan Cox of Blackball for services to the community. Alan Cox is a member of the Blackball Swimming Club, having volunteered for the club since 1980. He has helped implement pool upgrades and committed many weeks of service each season. He was a member of the West Coast Kennel Association, served as president for 22 years, and was a delegate to the National Annual Conference. He was a volunteer with the Blackball Fire Brigade from 1974 to 2015, serving as station officer. Mr. Cox has been a volunteer for the Order of St. John, chairman of the Blackball School Committee, and a key contributor to numerous community projects. Mr. Alan Cox, please come forward. Mr. Roger Gilbert of Leaston for services to sport and historical research. Roger Gilbert has been captain and chairman of the Kilinchi Tennis Club. He was president of the Ellesmere Tennis Sub-Association and played for the senior representative team. He was president of the Ellesmere Golf Club and Canterbury Golf. He is patron of the Canterbury Eagles Golfing Society. He was foundation president of the Ellesmere Historical Society. He chaired the Ellesmere Young Farmers Club, Christchurch District Committee, South Island Agricultural Field Days, and North Canterbury Farmers Charitable Trust. He was vice president of Federated Farmers, North Canterbury. Mr. Gilbert has written books on Ellesmere Rugby Sub-Union and the South Island Field Days. Mr. Roger Gilbert, please come forward. Mr. Ewan Mason of Ranfurly for services to Fire and Emergency New Zealand and the community. Ewan Mason has been a member of the Ranfurly Volunteer Fire Brigade since 1973, including 10 years as Chief Fire Officer. He established and developed the Maniatoto Community Speaker System, through which he's provided sound and lighting systems for local events and attractions for 47 years. He has supported the Maniatoto Primary School's athletic sports event and the Ranfurly Musical and Dramatic Society's productions for many years. He established and has provided technical support for the Burn 729 local community radio station. Mr. Mason has represented New Zealand as a bagpiper and voluntarily teaches the bagpipes to students. Mr. Ewan Mason, please come forward. Miss Melva Robb of Blenheim for services to rural communities and women. Melva Robb is the Marlborough Area Committee Chair for Rural Women New Zealand, RWNZ. She previously served as an elected member of the National Council of RWNZ and is currently acting Leadership Councillor for Region 3, covering the West Coast, Golden Bay, Nelson and Marlborough. She's a trustee of the Top of the South Rural Support Trust. Following the Christchurch and Kaikoura earthquakes, she organised and collected donations and supplies through Rural Women's Adverse Events Relief Fund and the Rural Support Trust. Ms. Robb helps organise the 101 Ways with Wool Festival in Blenheim. Ms. Melva Robb, please come forward. Mr. Barry Smith of Auckland for services to football and historical research. Barry Smith founded and edited for 20 years the New Zealand Soccer Annual and has been honorary historian for New Zealand football since 1987. He's been a contributor to virtually every association or club history published in New Zealand. He's a life member of New Zealand football and a recipient of national awards for services to the game. Since 1968, he has assisted the Auckland Football Federation by supplying player histories for football clubs in the northern region. Mr. Smith has also carried out similar recording for football clubs elsewhere in New Zealand since 1968. Mr. Barry Smith, please come forward. Mr. Ian Walker of Kaikoura for services to Fire and Emergency New Zealand. Ian Walker joined the Kaikoura Volunteer Fire Brigade in 1979 and has been Chief Fire Officer since 1985. He played a key role in responding to the 2016 Kaikoura earthquake, despite his own home and business being severely damaged. With no phone network, the brigade worked 4-hour shifts, manning the 111 number near the council. He played a major role in communicating with the community and liaising with stakeholders. He provided vehicles from his business to assist with the response. Mr. Walker served on the Kaikoura District Council and is a trustee member of the Community Vehicle Trust Board. Mr. Ian Walker, please come forward. Mrs. Diane Yolden of Taniatua for services to the community. Diane Yolden has volunteered for the Taniatua Community Board for 25 years, including time as Deputy Chairperson and Chairperson. She has been caterer for the Taniatua Lions for 25 years, running a fundraiser for the Taniatua Voluntary Fire Brigade, of which she is a support officer. She is a member, council member, and registrar of the Eastern Bay of Plenty Justices of the Peace Association. She was a volunteer librarian for Taniatua School and treasurer for the Taniatua Squash Club. Mrs. Yolden volunteered with the Taniatua Athletic and Tennis Clubs until they were incorporated into larger clubs. Mrs. Diane Yolden, please come forward. Your Excellency, the investiture is concluded.
Our honours system is our nation's highest public affirmation of outstanding individual achievement. It reinforces values and behaviours that sustain our communities and help our nation thrive and prosper. And these include service, courage, manaakitanga, and the pursuit of knowledge and excellence. By using their talents to make ours a better society, whether by service to their communities or by their leadership in diverse fields of endeavour, or their commitment to excellence in their field of expertise, our recipients have set a fine example to others. To the recipients, it's been a privilege to hear your stories today. You've demonstrated determination, commitment, and compassion in your daily lives. Your actions and the stories we've heard reflect the spirit of the words of one of 20th century's greatest leaders, Nelson Mandela, when he said, "What counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived. It is what difference we have made to the lives of others that will determine the significance of the life we lead." On behalf of all New Zealanders, I thank you for helping to make Aotearoa New Zealand a better place, whether by dedicating your lives to the public good, achieving distinction in your chosen field, or inspiring others with your leadership. Please wear your insignia with pride, knowing that your contributions are recognised and valued, and others are inspired by your leadership. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that almost brings to a close the formal part of today's ceremony. But before we break for refreshments and photos, may I ask you to stand and join me in singing our national anthem.